Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about another variable type called functions. Let's get started. So last class I left you off with the variable type tables. Extremely valuable and extremely important. We'll be using it for the remainder of the year, so don't forget it. We'll be recovering it over and over throughout the year, so hopefully if you haven't got it yet, you'll get it later. So today we're going to be talking about a new function type, a new variable type, extremely important, called functions. So let's open up VS Code and hit up our test.lua. This, if you're not working out of test.lua, it's something else, that's fine. I am actually going to change up my test.lua script so that it's not running this first portion. It's a little bit confusing. This is the last time I ran my code, and it gave me a bunch of information, the last of which was the only one I cared about. So what I want to do is I want to tell the computer to ignore the first portion, and we can tell it to ignore a single line by simply putting two hyphens in front of the line, and you'll notice that it turns dark green. That means that the computer won't read it. This is useful for also if you want to add notes in your code that the computer won't read, but you can write down for other coders so that they can kind of understand what you're doing. But I don't want to have to put a double hyphen in front of every single line, and so there's a way to block comment. There's a way to comment out a section of your text, and we do that with the with two close square braces after the section. This is the best way to do it, I think. Go to the bottom of your of the area you want to comment out. So I'm at the very bottom. I do two close square brackets followed by two hyphens. I got to exit out of that autocomplete, and then we are going to go to the beginning of the section we want to comment out, start with two hyphens, and then followed by two square brackets. And VS Code, of course, it completes your square brackets, so you got to get rid of the closed squares. And if we scroll around here, we can see that indeed this my commented out section starts and ends. Now, I'm sorry that shouldn't be there. That was in preparation for this lesson. But so this is all that we have done so far, and we can just comment out everything. I suppose that's a better way to put it. We can comment out everything. And then now, functions. Well, they are a little bit different than what we have been introduced to so far with regards to variables. So functions, as I've kind of drawn here, they are like boxes, except information comes in and goes out of the box at the same time. Well, it doesn't have to. It can go in and that can be it. But the main difference between this variable type, functions, and the others is that you can actually include code inside of this variable assignment. So you can include variables, and you can include lines of text, all kinds of stuff. And this can be extremely useful, and you'll see the applications later on. But for now, this is just a little drawing with the box, and the way I like to analogize functions is that they're like a machine. So you create a machine, and it does one thing, and it does it really well, and then you stick it in a box, and then whenever you need that machine, you just call that machine by name and give it what it needs, and it spits out what you're looking for. So it's a great way to kind of simplify, in a sense. If you have a task you have to do over and over and over, define it in a function, and then you can just call that function whenever you need that functionality. So enough with the analogies. Let's actually put this in code. The way that we define a function, the syntax is function, and you'll notice right away that it gives you the autocomplete. And we can go ahead and hit that. I think that's fine. Use it as much as you can. And here it says function, open and close parentheses, then followed by an end. It's important to note that the cursor is before the parentheses. Parentheses are a very, very crucial part of defining a function and also calling a function, which I will show later. And just so you know, we have been working with functions already. We have not defined any of our own, but we have been working with them. So let's go ahead, and we have to, this is simply the framework. We now have to give our function a name so that it's unique. It's different from all other functions, and we can call it. So let's just call it myfunc. And that'll be all. We can now go inside, if you will, of the function. And this is effectively the inside of the box. So you can fill it with whatever you want. And I'm going to write print hello world, which we haven't done yet, but that's one of the most basic scripts you start with. So I've got myfunc defined with a text inside says print hello world. Before we move on, just note that you can put many thousands of lines inside of a function. So the function can be extremely complex. And this is simply an example. All right, so we are going to save our script, and then we're going to go down to our terminal right down here, and I'm in the way, so I'm going to type clear, and then Lua test.lua. Again, remember that the first thing we define is the interpreter. The next thing we define is the script that we want it to interpret. So we are interpreting test.lua with the Lua interpreter. All right, so we're going to press enter, and it did nothing. We would expect, though, for print to write something to the screen. Well, the reason why it did not is because is a wonderful reason, and that is that functions don't run unless they're called. So this is great because let's say that you don't want a certain section of your code to run, or for whatever reason, it just doesn't run what's inside. Now, how do we get it to run? How do we get the stuff inside to run? Well, if I'm not mistaken, I can call it beforehand. I might have to rewind here in a second, but let's go ahead and before the function see if this works. And right there, autocomplete is doing its job. It knows, hey, yeah, you got something called myfunc. Would you like to use it? Over to the right there, it shows you the variable type, which is function. And if we press enter, it simply gives you that, which is not everything. You need to, like I was saying before, you have to include your open and close parentheses. That is how the Lua interpreter knows that you're calling a function. For example, print open and close parentheses. What do you think that is? Turns out that's a function. And I think if we were to just simply write print, yeah, right there, to the right of that blue autocomplete section, it says function. And so indeed, the print function that we've been using is a function. So great, fantastic. So we have myfunc, and now if we save it, let's see, it's not complaining. VS Code's not complaining to me. remember that you can use an up arrow to recall the last commands, and then Lua.test. Okay. Attempt to call global a nil value, traceback. So basically, that is what I suspected. It wants you to call it after. And that makes sense because the interpreter does not read the entire file before running it. I guess it reads it one line. I don't know how the Lua interpreter works, but I assume that it reads it one line at a time and executes it. So now let's try it. After moving the function after, we're going to hit that and, oh, what? Wow, I've never run into that before. But this is another, I might have introduced this. I'm pretty sure I have. The difference in global and local. It did not like that I defined my func as global. And so I had to write local before function. Just a reminder, variables are put into boxes and put on shelves. Now, not all shelves are accessible from the computer. For instance, let's say that the computer was running some code and it has a box called var. And then I come along and I say, okay, I'm going to define my own var. And here it is. It has a value of 5. Well, the box that's over here used by program 1 says, well, wait, no, I have, and then it gets all mixed up and messed up. So what you have to do is you have to say, no, this is local. This box is not accessible from any other software but my own. That way you keep the var variables all exclusive to their mods, if you will, and you don't accidentally, inadvertently messing up another mod. Okay, so that's the basics of defining a function. And later on, next class, we'll probably continue to work with functions because they're simply a script holder, so we can write all kinds of script inside. And so we are going to start working on functions and defining them, figuring out how to use them. And but that's the basics of how to create a function and how to call it. So don't forget that local, guys. Don't forget it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will talk to you next time.